Discover 3 spine-chilling true horror stories from the Dead of Night Volume 2 revealed. Emily's heart raced faster than her feet could carry her. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows on the quiet suburban street. It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening, filled with the comforting chaos of her 2 young daughters Lily and Sarah bouncing around the living room. But as Emily returned from her second job, a sensitivity prickled at the back of her neck. The door was slightly ajar, just enough to send cold dread slithering through her. She could have sworn she locked it tight before leaving, so what was happening? She shook her head, biting her lip. Exhaustion must have clouded her judgment. Yet as she helped her daughters with their bedtime routine, there was an unsettling weight in the air. Outside, the usual croaks and crickets faded into an eerie silence. Peering into the yard under the faint glow of the streetlight, she convinced herself she saw movement, a flicker, a shadow darting just beyond view. The trees seemed thicker than usual, their leaves whispering secrets of danger. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when her tired mind began to relax, her phone buzzed violently against the kitchen table, an urgent call from her retired neighbor, a former cop. Emily. There's a suspicious figure lurking near your home. Keep your girls inside and call the police. Panic surged. Emily's flesh prickled with fear, the creeping sense of dread morphing into a suffocating grip. With each breath, she felt the walls close in. The phone call ended too abruptly, leaving a hollow silence echoing in her ears. The backyard loomed like a dark abyss, and a primal urge twisted in her gut. Steeling herself, she approached the back door, hand trembling on the knob. The moment she swung it open, the world outside seemed too still, too silent. Then she saw him. The former police chief, standing ramrod straight under the porch light, his face obscured by shadows. His eyes glinted maliciously, the serenity of neighborhood trust morphing into a terrifying facade. A surge of desperation hit her. She couldn't just stand there. Knowing the police wouldn't come, she took a deep breath and pushed past the threshold into the night. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she sprinted into the dimly illuminated street, the dread pounding in her chest in sync with her heavy footfalls. As she fled, she felt an ominous presence trailing. Was it him? Her heart hammered louder. The unearthed truth twisted through her mind. This was no kind old neighbor. Whispers of missing children flitted through her memory, a sinister thread pulling tighter with each step. She ran, panic surging, only to realize the man who had once promised safety now stalked her closely. In a moment that would leave her forever scarred, Emily's instincts took over. She turned sharply, her eyes narrowing on the figure before her as darkness wrapped around them like a shroud. In that relentless chase, she came to realize darkness sometimes wears familiar faces. Would she find the strength to protect her daughters from the shadows that threatened to envelop them all? The night thickened, and an unnameable fear gripped her heart, the chilling knowledge haunting her as she felt herself backed into a corner, the sense of safety eviscerated, leaving behind only the stark reality of danger lurking right next door. Emily's breath came in jagged gasps as she caught sight of the figure lurking nearby, the darkness cloaking his intentions. The neighborhood had once felt like a safe haven, ripe with laughter and children's cries echoing against the porches. Now, it was a treacherous landscape filled with paranoia and menace. She turned, darting around the corner of a car parked by the curb, praying the metal frame would provide a semblance of cover, but fear spurred her to run faster. The sound of a heavy footfall echoed behind her, a rhythmic pounding that sent shockwaves of terror shaking through her. Was it him? Or something worse lurking just beyond her vision? She focused on the street ahead, sprinting toward the faded streetlight, the small pool of light like a beacon in the oppressive darkness. "Mommy!" Lily's frightened voice broke through her thoughts, pulling Emily back. What if he was already inside? What if he had taken her girls? Panic clenched around her heart like a vice. She had to get back. No matter what it took, darting toward her home, dread clung to her like fog. 1,000 questions raced through her mind as she approached the front door. Her intuition screamed for her to hesitate. What if this was a trap, a cruel joke orchestrated by the very man who should have been her protector? The door creaked, setting her nerves alight. She cautiously crept inside, glancing furtively over her shoulder, half expecting to see him dashing toward her. "Girls!" She called out softly, her voice trembling. Silence met her, her eyes darted around the dimly lit hallway. The faint sound of giggles drifted from upstairs, easing the pressure on her chest, but dread quickly began to unfurl all over again. Why hadn't they come downstairs? Why weren't they frightened? She rushed up the stairs, each creak of the wooden steps breaking the night like a warning bell. Lily. Sarah. As she reached the top, something glimmered in the darkness, her daughter's silhouette standing in the doorway of their room. The sight should have brought her relief, but it only deepened her unease. They were still dressed in their pajamas, but they weren't asleep. "Mommy!" Lily squealed, but Sarah was eerily silent. "What's going on?" Emily rushed into the room, panic creeping into her voice. "Did anyone come to the door? Has anyone tried to come in?" Lily's eyes were wide, but they looked past her. "We were just playing with him." A chill shot through Emily. With who? Two heads turned towards a figure that emerged from the shadows behind them. One Emily did not recognize, a tall man with gray hair and a crooked smile, his eyes gleaming oddly. A laugh, low and gravelly, escaped his lips as he stepped further into the glow of the nightlight. "What are you doing here?" Emily's voice trembled, but fury bubbled beneath the dread. "Get away from my kids." "Don't worry," he grinned, kneeling at their level, completely ignoring her threats. "I'm here to take care of them just like I took care of the last little girl in your neighborhood." Time froze. A jolt of fear cascaded over Emily. The stories of missing children rushed back, the whispers and rumors that had haunted neighborhood barbecues in the summer heat. Was this man linked to their disappearances? Each heartbeat thundered painfully in her ears. "Mommy!" Lily squeaked, reaching out for Emily, pulling her back from the abyss of terror that was only just beginning to unfold. "We were having fun." In that moment, as tension mounted, Emily felt the walls of her home close in. She had to choose escape or confront the man who threatened everything she held dear. The reality of her choice loomed over her like a forbidding shadow. Determined to protect her daughters, she stepped forward, her voice steady, even as her heart raced. "You need to leave now." But what if he didn't? What if he stayed? The man's grin widened, a predator teasing its prey. "Don't you want to hear my story first, Emily?" The night shuddered with anticipation, and Emily could only gasp, knowing she was right on the brink of something far more sinister than she ever expected. Emily's mind raced as she locked eyes with the man. His crooked smile revealed yellowed teeth, a haunting contrast to the innocence of her daughters. She felt paralyzed, every instinct screaming at her to flee, but her feet were glued to the carpet. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely breaking through the thick, oppressive air. "Every child has a story," he said, his voice smooth as honey but dripping with malice. "And you'll find that your girls are a part of something much larger, Emily." Lily clung to her mother's leg, the innocence of her presence contrasting with the nightmare unfolding. "Can we keep him, Mommy?" she chirped, blissfully unaware of the danger. Sarah, however, stood frozen, her gaze fixed on the stranger, curiosity battling fear in her wide eyes. "No!" Emily yelled, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. "Get away from them." The man chuckled softly, tilting his head as if amused by her desperation. "Why so hasty? Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Mr. Hargrove." And I've come to share what was hidden, very hidden indeed. His gaze shifted toward the window, the shadows creeping closer like wolves ready to pounce. A chill swept over Emily, and her protective instinct flared. She had to shield her girls, to break whatever spell this man seemed to have woven around them. You need to leave. Right now. He rose slowly, towering above her, and the glimmer in his eyes transformed into something darker, something predatory. You don't understand, do you? What's happening here? It's already started. His voice dropped to a whisper full of malice. Your daughters already belong to me. The walls felt like they were closing in, constricting the air around her. The house echoed with Lily's laughter, but now it felt twisted, as if mocking Emily's every thought. The darkness thickened, swirling like a tempest. Emily could almost hear whispers snaking through the walls, laden with secrets and fear. What had happened here? Mommy, what's wrong? Lily looked up, her innocent expression cutting through Emily's panic. No, they couldn't fall into this web. Emily knelt down and took both girls by their arms, her grip a mix of love and urgency. We need to go. Now. But as she made to pull them away, Mr. Hargrove stepped between them. You can't leave yet. You haven't even heard my story. In a flash, Emily caught a glimpse behind him, the hallway stretching into utter darkness. Whispers filled the air, a chorus of lost children, their faint cries merging with the shadows. Panic surged again, sickening and suffocating. Your story doesn't matter. Just let us go. Oh, but it does, he purred, an unsettling grin spreading across his face. It's a tale of promises made and broken. Your children are the key. A flicker of comprehension dawned on her. Suddenly, memories of her childhood flooded back, games played in the dark, imaginative tales shared by the neighborhood kids. What if those tales weren't just stories? What if they held a terrible truth? Mommy. Lily's voice broke through her thoughts, piercing the veil of dread. Don't let him take us. Emily could barely breathe. She had to act fast. Heart pounding, she whispered a desperate plan to her daughters while keeping her eyes locked on Mr. Hargrove. No matter what story he spun, she needed them out. She needed them safe. Will you ever let them go? Emily asked, forcing herself to sound brave. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, just for a moment, before he regained his sinister composure. Why would I? They're mine now. Then, in that twisting moment, Emily felt the pull of something ancient, a surge of protective energy igniting within her. It was now or never. The space around them crackled with the tension of impending doom. And in the depths of that darkness, a scream echoed through the house. Emily jolted at the sound, her heart racing. What was that? A flicker of recognition struck her. She felt it, a presence, something beyond the cold man in front of her. A child's cry, heart-wrenching and desperate. Stay close, she whispered, looking up at her daughters with fierce determination. This time, she wouldn't let fear paralyze her. Let us go, she murmured, but another chilling laugh filled the air, pulling her darker fears into reality. What if I told you I could make you part of the story? Forever? As Emily gripped her daughter's hands tighter, she knew that escaping this man wouldn't just be about fleeing. They were caught in a tale woven with dark threads, and the ending was yet to be written. Would she rewrite their fate, or was it already too late? The echoes of the scream hung heavy in the air, suffocating and dreadful. Emily's pulse quickened as shadows seemed to writhe around them, closing in with a malicious intent. We need to go. She hissed, urging her daughters towards the staircase. But Mr. Hargrove stepped forward, the darkness pooling around his feet, the very air vibrating with his intent. Leaving so soon is not an option, my dear, he purred, his voice a low growl. The hint of joy in his tone made her stomach churn. The story has yet to unfold. The real fun is just beginning. His posture shifted, becoming much more threatening. The crooked smile stretched broader, revealing more of those sinister teeth, the glint in his eyes like a predator anticipating its feast. Lily whimpered softly, her small hands trembling in Emily's grip. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Pay him no mind, girls," Emily whispered, her heart thudding. "We're getting out of here." She barely managed to lift her foot when he lunged toward them, arms outstretched, fingertips clawing at the air. "Do you think you can just walk away from this?" "The moment they stepped inside, they became part of my narrative," he sneered, his breath rancid and close. With each word, Emily felt an oppressive weight pressing down on her, as if the house itself was conspiring against them. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she pushed both daughters behind her. "We don't want a story from you. Let them go. You're not their father." The last word tore from her throat with the force of her desperation. "Father? Oh no, Emily. I have no need for such trivial titles. I'm not just any figure in their lives, I'm something far more essential," he said, tilting his head as if savoring the moment. "I'm like a scriptwriter, crafting the destinies of those who wander too deep into the dark." The walls seemed to swell, pulsating like a beating heart, tightening the space around them. The air thickened, wrapping around Emily and her girls, pushing them toward despair. The whispers grew louder, almost pleading, overpowering the rational thoughts in her head. Was this place truly alive, conspiratorial in its design? Sarah, brave and curious as always, glanced at her sister and then back at Hargrove. "What kind of story?" she dared to ask, despite Emily's warning glare. Lily buried her face in her mother's skirt, shaking uncontrollably. Mr. Hargrove's eyes glinted with glee, as though her question confirmed some unholy anticipation. "Ah, little Sarah. I knew you'd ask. This tale is about sacrifice, about choices made when faced with dark temptations." You see, he stepped closer, and the shadows danced like snakes at his feet, coiling and writhing. "Every story needs a climax, and every character must face their fate. Would you like to hear your fates?" "Shut up!" Emily yelled, her voice echoing off the walls as panic threatened to engulf her. "We want to be part of your sick story." But doubt seeped in, creeping like ivy around her thoughts. A young girl's cry echoed again, this time clearer and more potent. Was it a warning? A plea? She felt its tug at her heart, a drifting thread in this tangled web Mr. Hargrove had spun. "Make a choice, dear Emily," he taunted. "This is your moment. Either join the tale willingly or witness what happens to those who resist." The air shifted again. The whispers transformed into laughter, joyous, chilling, which crawled under her skin. It was a feast of chaos, and Emily could only hold her daughters tighter. Every instinct screamed at her to fight back, to turn away from the darkness, but Mr. Hargrove's hidden truths pulled at her, revealing herself a mother in danger of losing everything she cherished. Then, through the cacophony, she caught a glimpse of something, a flicker of light at the far end of the hallway. Was it hope? Or escape? With a surge of courage, Emily took a deep breath and began to back away, dragging her daughters with her. "Come on," she gritted out, stepping toward the light, away from Hargrove. But the shadows clawed at her heels, whispering secrets of despair that promised destruction. "Running won't help you." His voice boomed, echoing in a mocking cadence. "You can't escape the path laid out for you." Yet Emily pressed on, determination flooding her senses, lungs burning with urgency. She knew the fight wasn't just about the man in front of her, it was about protecting her girls from a fate that was not theirs to bear. "Mommy!" Lily screamed as an unseen force suddenly tugged at her little body, trying to pull her back. Emily's heart raced as the darkness clutched at her daughters, devouring their laughter. In that instant, she realized the stories Mr. Hargrove spoke of weren't merely tales, they were truths waiting to be rewritten. Not today, not ever. She shrieked, shoving past the encroaching shadows toward the light. But as they dashed forward, the walls around them began to tremble, and Emily sensed that the climax was drawing closer. What had she unleashed as they ran toward the brief salvation at the end of the hallway? Would the light lead them to safety or deeper into the web of terror? As Emily propelled her daughters toward the flicker at the end of the hallway, the darkness surged behind them, a tidal wave of despair intent on pulling them back. She could almost feel Mr. Hargrove's gaze piercing through the shadows, a sinister force rooting against her escape. Faster! Emily shouted, adrenaline coursing through every desperate fiber of her being. She could feel the chill of the air around them thickening, a barrier trying to close in and cut off their flight. With each step, the flickering light grew brighter, illuminating the walls that pulsed with life, their painted faces contorting in glee as if feasting on her fear. "Mommy, I can't," Lily cried, stumbling as the shadows clawed at her from behind, their whispers twisting her tiny heart in a squeeze of dread. "Hold on to me. Don't let go." Emily yanked her daughter up, the strength of a mother unleashed. She stole a glance over her shoulder and froze, terror constricting her breath. Mr. Hargrove stood still, but his eyes glimmered with an unholy delight, shadows swirling like smoke between them as if he were summoning some ancient wrath. "Your escape will be in vain," he bellowed, his voice melding with the laughter of the walls, creating a horrifying symphony that disoriented her. "This is just the beginning, Emily." In that moment, Emily's heart pounded with an instinctual urge to protect, reminding her of the countless tales of mothers who faced unspeakable evils. She could never let that fate be their truth. "Focus," she thought frantically. She scanned the hallway, searching for something, anything, that might hold the key to their survival. "Sarah, look!" she yelled, pointing toward the light that pulsed in rhythmic beats, almost beckoning. "We can make it." But as they sprinted forward, the floor began to tremble beneath their feet, like the house itself was shifting, pushing them back into the maw of shadow. The flickering light drew closer, its warmth caressing her skin, but doubt sank its claws deep. Could they really escape, or was this another trap set by Hargrove? Just a few steps away, the light flickered erratically, jarring back and forth, and Emily had just enough time to realize it wasn't a welcome. It pulsed erratically, dark tendrils darted out like greedy hands, curling to invade the sanctuary of brightness. "Mommy!" Sarah shrieked, tears streaming down her face as the walls seemed to swell and contract, creating a heartbeat in this world of terror. "It's too bright." With no time to process her daughter's words, Emily grabbed their hands tighter, clutching each small fist like it was her lifeline. "We're going." But the bright light exploded into a blinding flash, momentarily blinding them. Everything fell away, the noise, the whispers, the laughter. Emily stumbled forward, propelled by instinct, as the dark cocoon burst behind them with a guttural roar. The sound echoed, reverberating in the very bones of the house. Another shiver of dread coursed through her as she rushed into the light. It was alive, shimmering with a strange energy. Did she just step into a refuge, or was it a gateway to even more chaos? The thought thrashed in her mind, but she pressed on, pulling her daughters alongside her. Suddenly, they emerged into a wide room, the sudden quiet disorienting. Dust motes floated gracefully in the musty air, and for the first time, the oppressive weight of terror lifted briefly. The laughter faded into whispers, now a mere echo, as dim shadows curled against the corners of the space. "Where are we?" Sarah's voice was tiny and tremulous as she looked around, eyes wide with confusion. "Stay close." "I don't know," Emily trailed off. The room held no signs of life. It was sparsely furnished, lined with cracked shelves filled with ancient books and ornate trinkets, all covered in layers of dust. But something was off. A chill gnawed at Emily, raising goosebumps on her arms. Unshakable fear rippled through the air, she sensed it. They weren't alone. The shadows shifted again. A whisper in the corner seemed to breathe her name, an echo of Mr. Hargrove's laugh lingering like a spectre, reminding her of the precarious thread their lives now dangled from. "Mommy?" Lily's soft voice pulled her back into the present, but the innocence in her eyes was soaked with foreboding. Then Emily noticed something on the wall, a faded tapestry depicting a scene that chilled her, figures entrapped, faces twisted in horror, their eyes wide with pleading. It shimmered like the light, powerful yet cursed, reflecting a different narrative. Her heart raced anew. What had they stepped into? And what other stories lay waiting to be discovered in this haunted realm? Before she could answer, a low growl filled the air, and the walls creaked. From the corner of the room, deep shadows undulated, swelling, beckoning. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Perhaps they were never truly free. With dread pooling in her stomach, Emily wondered if this was merely the prelude to the true horror yet to come. The shadows thickened, creeping closer, cascading from every corner as if they sensed their fear, ready to trap them once again. Emily's heart raced, each beat thumping loudly in her ears. She turned her body, positioning herself between her daughters and the swirling darkness that was beginning to form shapes, figures that haunted every child's nightmare. "Stay behind me," she whispered, even as the tremor in her voice betrayed her composure. Sarah and Lily clutched each other's hands, eyes wide, their breaths shallow. The growl echoed again, deeper now, resonating through the walls like a heartbeat in some malevolent creature. Emily felt it in her bones. This was not just an emptiness, but a space charged with anticipation, every inch pulsing with a malevolence she couldn't quite understand. "Mommy," Lily started, but something in her tone made Emily's blood run cold. It was as if the shadow had reached deep inside her daughter's mind, latching onto the innocence that shone so brightly. Before Emily could respond, an ornate mirror caught her gaze, hanging crookedly among the dust-covered shelves. The glass appeared foggy, skimming over with a thin layer of grime, yet there was something almost hypnotic about it. Had it not been for the insistent growl that reverberated around them, she might have felt compelled to take a closer look. "Don't look at it," Emily snapped, suddenly alert, but Sarah, drawn in by the lure of the mirror, stepped forward. "I want to see." "No." Emily rushed to grab her arm, pulling her back with urgency. "We can't let ourselves be distracted." The growl intensified, morphing into a frenzied cacophony of whispers, tumbling over each other in a cruel symphony. Names. Secrets. Fearful pleas. Emily felt her resolve weaken. A torrent of emotions swirled, as if the shadows were peeling away the layers of her defense, exposing her vulnerabilities. Without warning, the tapestry on the wall shimmered, twisting even in the static air. Figures began to move within it, trapped souls reaching out, mouths opening in silent screams, eyes wide with terror that she could almost touch. She could feel their desperation, a weight pressing against her chest. "Do you see them?" Emily gasped, squinting at the wall. "What are they trying to tell us?" But the shadows responded faster. They surged forward, thick as smoke, fractals dancing ominously around them. Emily's pulse quickened. It felt as if time was crawling to a standstill. She could almost hear the fabric of reality stretching, fraying at the edges. "Mommy, please!" Sarah cried again, her tiny voice barely breaking through the thick air of dread. Suddenly, in a blinding flash, the figures within the tapestry lunged forward, crashing against the space as though they were trying to break free. Emily stumbled back, panic seizing her. The room spiraled around her, sensations blurring. "Run!" she shouted with a clarity above the chaos, dragging her daughters with her. They darted to the farthest corner, hearts hammering, eyes locked on the grotesque spectacle unfolding behind them. The shadows morphed into a swirling mass of limbs reaching. Desperation clawed at her thoughts, compelling her to act, but where could they hide? Was there truly a way out, or was every door leading them deeper into dread? The crashing sounds behind her intensified, the voices rising into a jagged chorus. Emily turned, shielding her girls behind her, ready to face whatever dark force threatened their fragile escape. Yet it was then, in the midst of that towering chaos, that she spotted something in the mirror. A figure hazy and ethereal loomed with a familiar silhouette. The realization struck her with cold clarity, freezing her blood. Emily, the shadow's voice was soft, almost like a caress, but filled with something more sinister. As she squinted, trying to understand, she felt the world around her begin to unravel. Did she truly want to know the identity of this spurious figure? In that fleeting moment, she feared she might find the answer could change everything. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, each thought a grim reminder of the choices pressing upon her. Who was this figure that dared to whisper her name? The shadow seemed drawn to her, both a tormentor and a relic of some deep-seated fear she couldn't quite place. "Mommy, what is it?" Sarah's voice quaked, a thin veil over rising panic. Lily's grip tightened, knuckles white, they were both looking to her for answers. But the only thing Emily felt was a cold wave of dread washing over her, mingled with that seductive allure pulling her toward the mirror. "Back away," she commanded, her voice sharper than she felt. Before she could ensure her daughters were safe, a jagged edge of light split the darkness, illuminating the mirror just enough for her to see the figure clearly. It was a woman, or what once might have been a woman, twisted by sorrow and haunting memories. The familiar features wrapped in shadow whispered of a long-lost love, a promise broken. Emily realized, with a mix of horror and recognition, that this specter resembled her sister, Sarah, who had vanished nearly a decade ago. Emily, the voice wrapped around her like a serpent, squeezing her resolve. "Help me." "No." Emily screamed, but her own fear gnawed at her edges, softening her stance. She fought to pull herself away from the mirror's pull, but the image beckoned with a desperate longing. "You're not real." The girl stepped forward, uncertainly placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. "Mommy, who is she?" "An illusion," Emily shouted, forcing her voice to steady her girls. "She can't hurt us. She wants to trick us." The embrace of shadowed fingers gripped tighter around Emily's heart. Any moment spent in that cursed room felt like a minute too long. They needed to escape. But she also needed to find out, was her sister really gone? Or was she trapped, pleading to be saved from something darker? "Mom!" A strangled cry erupted from Lily, her eyes fixed on the chaos swirling behind Emily. The tapestry writhed violently, the figures trapped within it now more defined, rushing against the fabric, intent on breaking free. Emily turned just in time to see something dark and massive batter against the wall, a hulking shape shifting behind the veil of shadows. "Mommy, please." Sarah's voice shattered her thoughts. The urgency pierced through Emily's fog. "Grab my hand." They clasped tightly, Emily linking them together. She needed to think, to act. In a flash, she remembered the old stories, the whispers about mirrors being gateways. The shadow of her sister beckoned again, a desperate reminder of all she had lost. Yet as she locked gazes with that pain-etched face, Emily glimpsed something else behind the eerie sorrow, a lurking evil, a warning lurking in a guise she once trusted. "Run!" Emily pulled her daughters toward the door, but it opened inward, slammed shut by unseen forces. Panic clawed at the group. Crash! A surge of darkness slammed against them, breaking through with a chorus of cries and screams that cut through the air, echoing with an agony both distant and intimate. The girl's fingers slipped from her grip, error painting their faces as they were drawn toward the shadowed figures. "No! You can't take them!" Emily lunged forward, fighting the oppressive weight of despair threatening to envelope her. With every howling breath filling the room, she faced the mirror once more, the air charged with desperation. "I don't believe you!" She screamed to the spectral image, but was it true? As shadows reached out with fingers clawing through the veil, Emily felt her belief slipping through her like sand, the weight of the unknown pooling in her gut. The chaos continued raging around them, an instinct fueled by maternal ferocity flared in her chest. She could not let the darkness claim her daughters. But at what cost? Suddenly, the mirror pulsated, colors swirling as if it was alive, beckoning her to step closer. What exactly lay within? In that instant, Emily knew she had to make a choice: enter the abyss or lose everything. "Mommy!" The cries echoed with panic. Could she face the truth of the shadows, or would she be devoured by them? The mirror throbbed again, revealing more of its secrets. What Ethan saw could change everything. The mirror's surface shimmered, a dark lake reflecting unholy visions. Emily's breath hitched as the figures writhed closer, clawing at the edges of her reality. The torment was palpable, and each second stretched painfully, warping time in a way that made her stomach churn. Emily! The ghastly whisper twisted through the air again, coaxing her toward the mirror. Each syllable dripped with anguish. Join us. Mom, I don't want to go that way. Lily cried, panic coursing through her veins, her small body trembling against Emily's side. Sarah was doing her best to keep it together, but even she couldn't hide the fear flashing behind her big brown eyes. Not now. Not like this. Emily shouted, desperation clutching at her. She turned to the mirror again, the image of her sister morphing in a wild dance of grief. No, not her sister. Not lost, not like this. You're not real. Yet, the heavy draw of the inexplicable pulled her forward. Her sister's eyes held a truth that understood Emily's deepest sorrows. The hunger to believe, to know what happened, twisted within her. It was both a comfort and a chilling threat. The shadows began to shift again, closer, vibrating with restless energy as if sensing Emily's growing uncertainty. They're fragile, Emily, the spectre crooned softly, a twisted mockery of familiarity. So fragile. Help them help me. Get back. Emily shouted, as her instinct to protect her daughters surged. She flung her arms wide, enclosing Sarah and Lily, but they were already stepping backward, retreating from the encroaching shadows. The reflection didn't just show her sister anymore, it held a framework, a promise unkept. What if there was a way to save them? With a sudden surge of strength, Emily slammed her palm against the mirror's surface. A ripple rolled through the air, causing the reflection to freeze. The spectral faces paused. Emily felt the darkness flicker, a moment of stillness where she could breathe. The weight began to lift, and the girls flanked her, their fear mingling with courage illuminated by the glimmer of hope. Mom! Sarah urged, her small voice breaking through Emily's wavering resolve. What do we do? Believe in each other. Emily cried, stealing a glance back at the spinning mirror. That's all we have. In a heartbeat, the darkness seemed to contract, as if responding to her conviction. The shouts from beyond dulled, retreating momentarily as a bright light blossomed from the depths of the mirror, swirling and beckoning like a siren's song. A moment's respite. They had to act fast. Cover your eyes. Emily ordered, shoving her daughters close as she turned back to the silver surface rippling with light. But too soon, the stillness shattered. Shadows erupted from the mirror, breaking free like a swarm of ravenous insects. Each twisting form surged toward them, iron hands extending into the room, attempting to grip anything they could latch onto, a chaotic blend of terror and wails. Mommy! Help! Lily squealed, her eyes wide as she stumbled backward, tripping over words and fear. They had to move. Emily pulled her girls closer, her heart a drum in her chest. The whispers swelled into a cacophony, drowned out by the pounding of her pulse. Together. With a jolt of determination, she led them, racing toward the door as the figures stretched their limbs, clawing for freedom. Just as they neared the door, a piercing shriek erupted from the mirror. The sound tore through the air, dragging Emily and her daughters to a stop. They looked back, breathless and wide-eyed, watching as the figure of her sister lunged forward, agony etched across her ghostly face. Emily! You can't leave me! Time froze as the true horror of choice laid itself bare. To save her daughters, she must abandon the hope of knowing. The air thickened with the weight of tangible despair. Don't! Emily pleaded, a tear tracking down her cheek, torn between love and an unspeakable reality, and just as abruptly, the doorway flickered. Light streamed back, creating a path but cutting off the screams. The mirror pulsed violently, the surface rippling in. Fury! Go! Emily screamed, spurred by fury and love, propelling herself forward, too. But would they escape unscathed? In that frantic rush, as the darkness clawed desperately at their heels, Emily's last glance at the mirror revealed something monstrous waiting, just behind the image of lost love. The real horror was not fading behind them, what sinister truth lay just beyond the light. Emily tightened her grip on her daughters, their fate uncertain, as the shadows closed in. Would they reach the door, or would the whispers swallow them whole? The door slammed shut with a deafening thud, the weight of the plummeting darkness crashing behind them. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat, the panic swarming within her like bees in a hive. Distant echoes of the cries behind her became indistinguished chaos, screaming for her to turn back, to give in to the agony of the familiar. "Mom, what now?" Sarah's voice trembled, pulling her back. Emily glanced around. They were in the hallway, dim and warped. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into forms that mirrored her own fears. Lily clung to her leg, her small fingers cold against Emily's skin. "Keep moving," Emily urged, tugging her daughters toward the staircase that spiraled down into darkness. Each step felt like a desperate plunge into a yawning abyss. The air thickened, oppressive, suffocating. She could feel the shadows pressing in around them, pants on the back of her neck with whispers clawing at her resolve. The stairs creaked and groaned under their weight, almost like a warning, as if the house itself wanted to swallow them whole. "Where are we going?" Lily whimpered, her face streaked with tears. "Anywhere but here." Emily shot back, a wildness in her voice. They couldn't stay, the mirror was a wound that couldn't be reopened. The visions, the pain, she wouldn't let them touch her daughters. Suddenly, the lights flickered, buzzed, and died, plunging them into pitch black. Emily halted, her breath quickening. "Hold on to me. Don't let go," she instructed, her voice fierce but shaky. The darkness felt alive and hungry. A chilling breeze wormed its way through the hall, chilling her bones. She could almost hear it laughing, a soft derisive sound tugging at the edges of her sanity. Something waiting, just waiting. When flickering lights sputtered back to life, Emily was greeted by a scene that twisted her insides. Every door along the corridor stood ajar, shadows spilling through the gaps like clammy fingers. It was unsettling, as if the rooms were eyes, watching their every move. "Emily!" The mournful cry rose from beyond one of the doors. The voice echoed through the hall, pulling at her core. Familiarity tugged at her heart, her sister's voice laced with the same anguish. "You shouldn't have left me." "No!" Emily shouted, squeezing her eyes shut, willing the sounds to fade. She had to protect Sarah and Lily from this nightmare. Panic flooded her chest as she grasped the girls tighter, her heart hammering. A sudden crash came from the nearest door, splintering wood and splattering white dust into the air. The anguished wails intensified. Emily's heart raced, she couldn't spare a moment. She turned, propelling them down the hall. But behind them, the moisture-laden breath of the shadows sighed with longing, drowning in longing a chorus of voices pleading, beckoning, desperate for companionship. The next doorway loomed, slightly ajar with a flickering light illuminating just enough to expose a swirling darkness within. Instinct surged again, pushing Emily forward, this way. But the more she ran, the stronger the feeling of dread pulled at them, wrapping its tendrils around her girls. When they reached the end of the hall, another exit appeared, but the swept air was electric, like the calm before a storm. As they neared, the whispers changed, chilling her to the bone. "You can't escape, Emily," they cooed. "Not until you make your choice." Frozen in their grasp, Emily turned. Fear coursed through her veins. "What do you want?" It's simple, sacrifice one to save the other. The choice hung heavy in the air, an unbearable weight. A scream bubbled in her throat, but it was swallowed by the darkness. Fear twisted into something sharp, an unforgiving blade pressing at her mind. "No. I want tea." She gasped, but the choice was his to make. But what lay beyond this door? Was it safety? Or would they find only the reminder of loss, as the shadows beckoned, clouds of regret closing in, Emily felt the heat of foreboding clench around her heart. She had to choose. And behind the open door, an existence of chilling truth awaited would her choice echo through eternity? Emily took a deep breath, mounting her resolve. Could she live with the choice? Mom. Sarah's voice broke into her thoughts. We can't wait, what do we do? The past's specters had returned, and the present slipped through her fingers like sand. Time was running out. What horrors lay ahead if she stepped through that threshold? Would it reveal the truth, or drown them in deeper despair? Emily stood at the precipice of her worst nightmare, heart racing like a wild horse as she faced the choices ripping through the air. Her daughters flanked her, fear knitting tight across their innocent faces. Sacrifice one to save the other. The shadows whispered, smooth as silk, but drenched in poison. It twisted deep in her gut, and she found herself locked in the throes of a mother's worst dilemma. What price would she pay to protect her children? The door ahead seemed to beckon her like a ravenous maw, an invitation dripping with malice. I want to choose. She shouted, the defiance echoing through the corridor like a flare against the consuming darkness. But even as the words tumbled from her lips, she felt the suffocating weight of despair pressing down upon her. The shadows squirmed, hungry for their prey, rising like a storm around them. Mom, please! Lily cried, tugging at Emily's leg, while Sarah's small hand shook against her. Emily could almost feel the darkness course through her veins, gnawing at her resolve like a relentless tide. What if the choice was a cruel ruse to draw them closer to despair? No. This is our story, Emily declared, the protective fire igniting in her chest anew. Not his. Drawing her daughters even closer, she met the encroaching darkness with a steely determination that sang through her bones like electricity. The shadows recoiled momentarily, seemed to brace itself like the roar before an approaching storm. Emily felt a rush of clarity, an ancient adrenaline awakening within. Every instinct surged, and the old tales of strength, woven into the fabric of her childhood, wrapped around her like armor. Together! Emily shouted, her voice breaking through the cacophony. She took a bold step towards the door, pulling her daughters with her, forcing their little hands to unite in a chain of love and strength. They were a barricade against the darkness, and a flicker of hope ignited as they moved as one. As they crossed the threshold, the light expanded like a wave. Colors burst around them, a chorus of illumination pushing against the shadows. The whispers morphed into a swirling warmth, wrapping around Emily and her girls, lifting the veil of despair suffocating their frantic hearts. But what lay ahead? They barreled into the light, breaking away from the terror behind them. In that whirlwind moment, Emily felt a shifting, a reordering of their destinies. The twisted stories writhed around them but aflame with new potential, desperate for an ending only they could write. Mommy, hold on! Sarah screamed, but in that moment, Emily's heart swelled with an invincible force. I'm right here. We're together. She could feel the dance of freedom swell around them like a pulse, a heartbeat reverberating both in the air and through her daughters. Just as they thought they had escaped, shadows tried to slither back, reaching out with desperate hands from the edges of the light. Yet, the closer they got, the weaker the grip became until with a final roar, Emily felt the darkness collapse behind them. The characters of Lost Tales faded, their lamenting cries fading into the background as the bold light enveloped them completely. Emily held tight to her girls as the light exploded around them in a brilliant flash, blinding and dazzling. But when she opened her eyes again, they stood safely amidst the familiar shadows of their living room, the night alive with crickets and a cool breeze flowing through the open window. It was just a house, but it felt like a hug from a long-lost friend. Are we home? Lily asked quietly, blinking rapidly, confused. Yes, I think we are, Emily breathed, feeling a rush of relief wash over her, yet tangled with the weight of everything they had faced. She hugged them tight, inhaling their familiar scents, everything grounding, everything true. But still, flickers of shadows brushed past her vision, remnants of what just had been. Would the darkness always linger at the edges of their lives? Could she ever truly rest? In that instant, a whisper danced through her mind she would fight to keep it at bay. She would write a new story for her family, one of love, resilience, and strength. As her daughters nestled closer, she could feel the warmth of their hearts, real and vibrant against the chill of what they had faced. Always together, right? She promised, her heart echoing the sentiment. Always. They replied in unison, the trio shining with a light that could dispel even the darkest corners of nightmares. And as they settled into the familiar safety of their home, Emily felt the tenderness of hope bloom brightly. They had escaped a tale woven in horror, but they were alive to write their own. Now, it's your turn. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and get our content out there. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.